While some may be familiar with the Battle of Jenkins Ferry or the Battle of Pea Ridge in Arkansas's participation in the Civil War, not many know about the Battle of Marks Mills. And this is a shame because this battle was one of the bloodiest in Arkansas state history. On April 25, 1864, over 2,000 troops, both Union and Confederate, were wounded, killed, or taken prisoner. Most of the casualties, though, came from the Union side, as the Battle of Marks Mill was a Confederate ambush on the Union supply train. Before we talk about that, however, we need to identify a few key events and characters. The Red River Campaign, Camden Expedition, General Frederick Steele, and General Sterling Price. And it begins here, in the Arkansas state capital of Little Rock.
The Red River Campaign was organized by Major General Henry W. Hallett, the Chief of Staff of the Union armies. His strategy entailed a Union offensive against Confederate troops in Louisiana, Texas, and Arkansas. It comprised of 3 plans. Major General Nathaniel P. Banks would deploy 20,000 troops from the vicinity of New Orleans, traveling through southern Louisiana to seize Alexandria, situated near the state's center, prior to advancing to Shreveport. Rear Admiral David Dixon Porter, leading over 30 vessels and a supplementary supply fleet, would navigate the Red River to meet Banks in Alexandria. A contingent of 10,000 troops, led by Brigadier General Andrew Jackson Smith, and split from William T. Sherman's Army of Tennessee, would protect Dixon's flotilla. Steele would command an additional 10,000 Union soldiers from Little Rock, Arkansas, and approach Shreveport from the north or east after Banks and Porter joined forces and continued upriver toward Shreveport.
Steele's part of the plan was called the Camden Expedition. However, he opposed this because the roads in Arkansas were unpredictable, the planting season limited how much food they could gather, and they were likely to encounter fierce resistance. Upon hearing of his opposition, Union leader Ulysses S. Grant wrote Steele personally, ordering him to carry out the expedition. Where I'm standing right now, what may look like a creek bed is actually the old wagon trail that Steele and his troops took to head towards Marks Mill.
Move your force in full cooperation with General N.P. Banks. Attack on Shreveport. A mere demonstration will not be sufficient. Now that a large force has gone up the Red River, it is necessary that Shreveport and the Red River should come into our possession.
After receiving this direct order from Grant on the 10th of September, 1863, Steele drove Confederate forces, led by General Sterling Price, from Little Rock. With Price running from Little Rock and Steele hot on his heels, they continued southwards, towards here, the small town of Camden. After utterly losing a battle at Poison Springs, however, Steele's men were in rough shape, and morale was extremely low. Rations were also low, as William Joseph Modern from the 33rd Iowa Infantry recalls on April 19, 1864.
Today we've drawn 4 ears of corn for our day's rations.
Another Union veteran by the name of Andrew F. Sperry also makes note that hardtack, which is similar to crackers, despite still being handed out, became more and more rare. Even the horses and cattle were in terrible condition. A Union captain named Charles A. Henry wrote to Steele, suggesting that he turn the broken-down animals out and let them forage for themselves. According to official records, there is no response from Steele regarding the suggestion. The blacks of Steele's troops were in a rough predicament as well. Many in Camden at the time hated colored people and believed they had no part in a white man's war. The black troops were even accused of looting and stealing, and some were even attacked by local residents. One Camden woman even said that what brings her blood to heat was the sight of Negro troops going out to fight our men. In the days following Steele's arrival in Camden, the mail had come, which gave many, if not all, the troops hope and relief. Sperry had this to say about receiving mail. It was the first word we had heard from home or civilization
since March began. Little could the writers of these letters imagine how eagerly the envelopes were torn open, or how dear and precious the words of love and hope. From home seemed to us so long cut off from even the comfort of a camp. Welcomed and prized as letters always were, they had never been so much as now. And few of us can look back to those good old days without remember the good old mail we got at Camden.
With this renewed hope, Steele's soldiers felt ready for anything. I've talked a lot about Steele and his Union troops, but what about the Confederates? How are they faring since being driven from Little Rock and Camden? They were doing quite well, in fact. Despite also being low on rations, Price's and others' men were also well rested and well armed.
The loss of Camden and Little Rock put a dent in the Confederates' ego, but this didn't deter them from stopping Union forces from heading to Louisiana. This came by way of ambushes, but these were little hit and runs compared to the main action, the Battle of Marks Mill.
While in Camden, Steele sent Lieutenant Colonel Francis Drake with over 1,200 infantry, multiple artillery pieces, and cavalry support, accompanied by 240 wagons, to procure supplies at Pine Bluff. Upon learning of Drake's departure from Camden, Confederate Brigadier General James F. Fagan stationed his over 2,000 cavalrymen at the intersection of the Camden-Pine Bluff Road and the Warren Road, thereby obstructing Drake's passage. Fagan instructed Brigadier General Joe Shelby's division to position itself to the east along the Camden-Pine Bluff Road to obstruct any potential retreat towards Pine Bluff, while Brigadier General William L. Cabell's division was tasked with launching an assault from the southwest. On the morning of April 25th, Cabell's division initiated a poorly coordinated incremental assault on Drake's column. By deploying one brigade into combat prior to the position in the second, Cabell's forces secured the wagons but subjected themselves to severe counterfire. The 43rd Indiana and the 36th Iowa regiments capitalized on the mistake and impeded the Confederate assault until Union reinforcements arrived to halt the advance. Cabell's division experienced a loss of momentum and struggled to recover it. Nevertheless, the Union forces gradually started to lose control of the battle due to the larger Confederate numbers. Shelby, attacking from the east, struck the unsuspecting Union left flank. Surprised and with Drake gravely injured, the Union forces surrendered after almost 5 hours of combat. Upon hearing the sounds of combat ahead, 500 men from the 1st Iowa Cavalry, on furlough and lagging behind, hastened to assist by confronting the enemy to the west of Marks Mill. The 1st Iowa ultimately ceased its assault to evade the substantial Confederate forces.
It was here where over 2,000 soldiers were killed, wounded, or taken prisoner, fighting for what they believed in. Where I'm sitting right now, hundreds of unmarked graves are here. An eyewitness to the battle, Eleanor T. Marks, says there are 99 of the Northern soldiers buried in the orchard. Location of the orchard is unknown. However, one grave is identified, and it belongs to Benjamin Charles Bennett, private of Company A in the 36th Iowa Infantry. Private Bennett here was 38 when he enlisted, and he was born in Ohio. He had a wife named Sarah Ann, and together they had 4 children. He was one of the first casualties of the battle. It actually wasn't until the mid-1990s that his grave was even identified, over 130 years after his death. Where I'm sitting now is where the Marks home used to stand. I'm actually sitting next to their well. During the battle, their house served as a makeshift hospital. Martha Marks, her sisters, and their mother acted as nurses. When recalling the battle, Martha had this to say.
The Battle of Marks Mill was fought 1 mile from our home. Our home was a temporary hospital, and I can see now the wounded and the dying lying on our porches in the house. General Sherman was right about war. It is hell.
Another account exists of the battle, but it was passed down through word of mouth to the granddaughter of Confederate soldier Benjamin F. Knowles. Growing up, Anita didn't know much about her grandfather's time in the war. It wasn't until near his death that a comrade of his told her what happened. According to the comrade, her grandfather
Benjamin F. Knowles was ordered to shoot the lead horses of the first wagon. So many horses and soldiers were wounded and killed that Salty Branch ran red with blood.
I'm actually standing in Salty Branch right now. Black or white, North or South, Union or Confederate, it doesn't matter. Lives were lost and families were ripped apart. Whether we like it or not, this bloody battle is not only part of Arkansas's history, but the United States' history. No matter how much we want to change that, we can't.
I want to give a shout out to everyone who helped me make this documentary. My mom, Patricia St. John, voicing Martha Marks. My mom's friend's mother-in-law, Peggy Clemenson, voicing Anita Knowles. Her grandson, Kason Clemenson, voicing Andrew F. Sperry. My grandfather, Rick St. John, voicing Ulysses S. Grant and playing the harmonica. And my dad, Marty Maddox, voicing William Joseph Motter. I would also like to give a shout out to everyone who helped me film. For the Little Rock location, my best friend, Dana Smith. And for the Marks Mill and Camden locations, my mom, Patricia St. John. I would also like to give a big shout out to my professor at UCA, Dr. Foster, who helped make this entire documentary possible.